With us this morning is one of the smartest, one of the most honest, one of the most straight arrow people that can talk about the law that I know, Alan Dershowitz. Good morning, Alan Dershowitz. How are you this morning?
Hi, I'm doing great. How are you?
Alan, I've seen you in the media. I've known you for many, many years.
hmm
I know that you are concerned too that our Washington is not to be considered a third world country as far as the law. Tell me,
hmm
what do you think is going on?
I think our legal system among Western democracies is among the most politicized. We're the only country in the world that has to appoint special counsel. In virtually every other country, the administration of justice is objective. It's enforced by career people, by civil servants, by people who are not beholden to political parties or the president or Congress. And in the United States, we politicized our system of justice. Look, we elect prosecutors. That means they're all running for office. We elect judges in many states. And the Justice Department, the Attorney General, always has a conflict of interest. He is a cabinet member who's supposed to be loyal to the president, but he's also supposed to be the chief law enforcement officer of the United States, and those roles are completely incompatible. Every other Western democracy divides those roles, and that's the structural cause of the problem. The other problem is we've become so hyper partisan and politicized that you can't make any objective statements anymore without people asking, what side do you want? Whose side do you want?
Now, I mean, it all started with me scratching my head when the FBI deputy director, which is pretty high up, Andrew McCabe, his wife accepted $700,000 from my friend, and he's my friend, Terry McAuliffe, to run for a political office in Virginia. And it comes out later on that that money came from the Chinese. How can a deputy director of the FBI allow his wife to accept that kind of money?
Well, you say allow. Any of us who've been married for a long time know we don't often allow our wives to do anything.
Touche. I agree.
They do what they want to do. Look, it wasn't right because justice has to not only be fair and impartial, it has to be seen to be fair and impartial. And when you have somebody who is running for office and partisan, and her husband is in charge of a very important investigation of political candidates, the perception of unfairness is there. And then you get the person who's in charge of the FBI investigation, Strzok, and he's sending messages to his girlfriend about how we have to have an insurance policy against Trump getting elected. And then we have, the whole investigation being conducted by Ron Rosenstein, who's a major witness. He's the guy who wrote the memo saying to President Trump that it's okay to fire Comey, and now he's in charge of the investigation that includes obstruction of justice and the firing of Comey. The American public is losing faith in the objectivity and neutrality of our criminal justice system. I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. A lot of Democrats lost faith when it was politicized, when they went after Bill Clinton, starting out with Whitewater and ending up with a blue dress. Now a lot of Republicans lose faith because they see what's going on with Donald Trump expanding the law of obstruction of justice, trying to criminalize political differences. We really have to get back on track here because the administration of justice is so important to all Americans.
Now, the Inspector General, Michael Horowitz,
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden has woken up and say he's going to cross-check the Department of Justice and the FBI and the interrelationships. I mean, I've heard that this guy, Michael Horowitz, is an honest, straight guy.
That's what I hear too. Yeah.
And I hope he does the right job to clean up this mess.
I hope so too. And in fact, he's the guy who should be doing these investigations. We didn't need special counsel appointed to do this. It's much better to have it done by career people inside the department. The problem with special counsel is they come in with an agenda and a mandate. Get somebody. There are targets on people's backs. And if they spend millions of dollars and they end up not finding criminal conduct on behalf of any important person, they fail. And there's something very, very wrong with the system that starts out with the assumption that somebody's guilty. And if they don't find anybody guilty, it's regarded as a failure.
I have a former senior guy from FBI who works for me for my company, and he feels he knows this guy Horowitz. He says he's an honest guy, and he knows Mueller, and he feels that he hopes that Mueller will do the right job and be able not to be politicized. Any opinion on that?
Well, I think Mueller is a zealot. I don't think he's partisan. I don't think he cares whether he hurts Democrats or Republicans, but he's a partisan and a zealot. Look, he's the guy who kept 4 innocent people in prison for many years in order to protect the cover of Whitey Bulger as an FBI informer. What happened in Boston, those of us in Boston don't have such a high regard for Mueller because we remember this story. The government had to pay out tens of millions of dollars because Whitey Bulger, the notorious mass murderer, became a government informer against the mafia. And as a result, they wanted to protect him. And 4 people that Whitey Bulger killed were held responsible, that others were held responsible for those murders. And the FBI and the Justice Department didn't want to blow the cover of Whitey Bulger, so they allowed these 4 people, 2 of them died in jail, and 2 of them spent long, long periods of time in jail. And that's regarded in Boston as one of the great scandals of modern judicial history, and Mueller was right at the center of it. So he is not without criticism by people who know him in Boston.
The other thing, in addition, what happened with 60 Minutes, I usually have a lot of respect with 60 Minutes.
I have very little respect for 60 Minutes, I have to tell you. I have had experience with them over the years. They edit to make programs comport with their agenda. I've had experiences with them where they've totally distorted what they've been told. So, I mean, we have mixed experiences. I will not allow a client to go on 60 Minutes. I tell my clients, if you want to go on TV, go on live TV. Where you
in other words, they have
don't get
an
into
agenda.
A situation where an editor is going to determine what you've said.
You know something? You're 110% right. If you're on live TV and they allow you to say what you really want to say, then then that's a better way, and I think that's the best advice you can give to a client. Any, sex has been part of the way in life for a few million years.
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah, they tell me it's fun. Yeah.
And and my joke about Steve Wynn was, I'm shocked. There's sex in Las Vegas.
Steve's a friend of mine. I have tremendous respect for him. He was an incredible businessman. He helped build Las Vegas, and he hasn't given an opportunity to defend himself.
I think it's terrible.
He was accused, and once you're accused these days, there's not only a presumption of guilt, but an absolute presumption of guilt. You can't defend yourself. If you defend yourself, you're regarded as somehow part of the culture of abuse and culture of rape. But we have to get back to the time where we have a presumption of innocence for all crimes, whether you're the President of the United States or the head of the Wynn Enterprises or anybody else. There has to be a presumption of innocence, and the burden has to be on the other side, and it has to demonstrate beyond a reasonable doubt that you're guilty. On university campuses today, if there is a complaint about a sexual impropriety, it prevails by a preponderance of the evidence, by 51%, which means that about 49% of those people who are convicted are probably innocent.
And again, what's happening, if you're on the front page of the New York Post, you're guilty.
Yeah, if you're on page 6, you're even guiltier, right?
These sexual allegations against Trump, should people just leave it alone?
Well, first of all, Trump should not testify about them because that's his real vulnerability. That's where Bill Clinton made the mistake. He was walked into a perjury trap by his lawyer, and Bill Clinton shouldn't have done that, and President Trump shouldn't make that mistake. He should not discuss this at all. He should say, look, my private life before I became president is my private life. I'm not going to talk about my businesses. I'm not going to talk about my romantic life. I'm not going to talk about anything other than what I've done politically. I'm the President of the United States. You want to ask me anything about my office?
That's great advice.
But I'm not going to talk about
Alan Dershowitz, we have a minute left. Anything else you want to tell the American public?
Well, I think all Democrats and all Republicans have to demand an objective justice system. It was Lavrenti Beria, the head of the KGB, who said to Stalin, show me the man and I'll find you the crime. And, today it's Donald Trump. Yesterday it was Hillary Clinton. They were yelling, lock her up. Tomorrow it could be any one of us. So defending the rights of the president to fairness is defending the rights of every American to be treated fairly by the American system of justice.
Alan Dershowitz, thank you so much for coming on our show this morning and telling the American people the truth. And I have a great deal of respect for you for carrying out that truth. Thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure.